Big Brothers Big Sisters is committed to child safety, and this training is an effort to increase safety for all children while participating in a Big Brothers Big Sisters program and in everyday life. This training will take about an hour to complete. There are some sections that have reflection questions, so we ask that you take a moment to consider your response. Today's training is focused on the prevention of child sexual abuse. We are doing our part to help protect the children and youth in our community. Although we understand that this is a difficult subject, there are things that you can do to help reduce the chances of it happening. Some portions of this training may be upsetting or difficult to watch, so it is important to check in with yourself throughout the training and do what you can to take care of yourself. If you need to take a break and come back to the video later, feel free to do so. With that in mind, we are going to begin by watching a video that explains what we will be discussing today.
All children deserve to live in a world that nurtures and protects them from harm. At Big Brothers Big Sisters, we're working hard to support families who are exposed to the violence and victimization we see in many of the communities we serve. Within Big Brothers Big Sisters programs, children are safest when parents and our staff work together. Parents are our eyes and ears when it comes to checking on how the child's match is going. We count on you to let us know if there are any problems. This works like an early warning system. You can let us know about concerns with your child's match that we need to address. Sadly, all types of youth-serving organizations like sports, schools, recreation, and mentoring programs face the reality that the children they serve may be hurt by the adults who are supposed to help protect them. Big Brothers Big Sisters has put in place important policies and procedures designed to help keep children safer while they're with their big. We're very proud of our safety record, but at the same time, we need your help to continue this success. This training is the first step in our partnership with you to work together to help protect your child in their everyday lives. In this training, you'll learn why personal boundaries are important and how they help keep children safe, facts about child sexual abuse, including how sexual abusers target their victims and how abuse affects children, signs of sexual abuse you should look for in your child, what to do if you think your child may have been abused, key rules to teach children and teens to help protect them from abuse, how to talk to your child about sexual abuse, and information about our policies and procedures that set rules for relationships between bigs and littles to increase child safety.
As mentioned in the video, these are the different topics that we will discuss throughout this training. Hopefully, by the end of this training, you will have a good idea of how these factors help improve child safety. The next video we will watch will discuss the importance of boundaries for children and teens.
A boundary is something that marks or separates one person's or group's space from another. Personal boundaries are rules that we use to let others know what kind of things are okay and not okay to say or do to us, with us, or around us. We have different rules that make up our personal boundaries that are shaped by things like where we live and our cultural or family values. When we have clear personal boundary rules and use them the same way every time, we are more likely to feel safe. Adults get to pick their personal boundary rules and when to use them, but children are different. Young children have to count on involved parents and other adults to pick the right personal boundary rules for them. They need adults to teach them those rules and when to use them, and to help them practice using personal boundaries to keep them safe. And they're always learning from watching what you do. Children are taught to do what adults tell them, and some adults may use their influence to trick or force children to do things that harm them. Teenagers are different too. They need basic rules to help them make good decisions when they can't or won't ask adults for help. But often, they don't like their parents or adults telling them what to do, and may even argue about rules or go against them. They're also influenced by their friends, which can sometimes be helpful and at other times confusing. Teens need personal boundary rules that change based on their age. They face more difficult decisions about school, friends, their sexuality, and their behavior in general than they did when they were younger. They need rules that fit with these decisions, practice using the rules in real-world situations, and a plan for where to get help when things aren't going well. Teens are also learning to be independent. They need support and guidance to learn to do more and more things on their own. Keep in mind that a teen's brain is still developing, and their understanding of the world is different than an adult's. Like younger children, this can lead to misunderstandings, being tricked into doing things they shouldn't do, or finding themselves in situations they don't know how to handle. Having strong boundary rules helps protect children and teens when others try to violate their boundaries. A personal boundary violation is when someone goes against a person's rules about how they want to be treated. They can be physical, verbal, or sexual. Our emotions can give us clues about our own personal boundaries, what's okay and what's not okay. Physical violations involve unwanted touch. Verbal violations happen when someone says something you think is wrong or inappropriate. Sexual boundary violations involve unwanted sexual touch or statements and happen when you are sexually harassed, abused, or assaulted. They can happen when you're pressured to do sexual things before you're ready. People who violate sexual boundaries often look for easy targets, like children, who may not have accurate information about sex. In the next video, we'll talk about one kind of personal boundary violation, child sexual abuse.
Understanding and setting boundaries is an important aspect of preventing child sexual abuse. A boundary is defined as something that marks or separates one person's or a group's space from another. Personal boundaries are rules that let others know what kinds of things are okay or not okay. A personal boundary violation is when someone goes against a person's rules. It is very important to teach children and youth to set boundaries for themselves and to feel comfortable enforcing them. Let's look at some examples. Someone gives your child a hug even though the child is backing away. This is an example of violating a personal boundary. If you teach your child that they have the right to choose when to give hugs, even if it's to family members or close friends, this is an example of a personal boundary. And if a family member tries to hug your child, but your child offers a high five instead, this is an example of your child enforcing their personal boundary. Now we are going to focus on child sexual abuse, which is defined as any sexual behavior that children do not fully understand, are not able to give consent to, or do not give consent to. It is important to note that child sexual abuse can happen even when no physical touch takes place. In the next section, we will learn about the difference between hands-on and hands-off sexual abuse. Before moving forward, it is important to discuss the meaning of consent, as it is often used in relation to child sexual abuse. Consent means giving someone a choice about touch or actions and respecting their answer. When talking with children about consent, you can help them understand the term consent by relating it to asking for permission.
Child sexual abuse is any sexual behavior that children do not fully understand, are not able to give consent to, or do not give consent to. This abuse is also against the law. The abuse can be between an adult and a child, a teen and a child, or between two children. It is also any sexual behavior that includes creating pictures or video of the sexual abuse or forces children to have sex for something of value, including money or drugs. Child sexual abuse can take place between two teens when the behavior is unwanted by one of the teens. It can also include situations when one teen is younger than the other. It includes situations when one teen uses force or threats to get the other to be a part of the sexual behavior, or when one teen is on drugs, drunk, or was drugged by someone else. This means they can't consent. It also includes situations when one teen has learning or developmental delays, which means they may not understand what is happening well enough to give consent, or they may understand things more like a younger child. Sexual abuse can be hands-on or hands-off. Hands-on child sexual abuse is when there is physical touch or physical contact between the abuser and the child. This could be the abuser kissing the child, touching the child, or getting the child to touch them. Hands-off child sexual abuse is when the abuser watches the child with some or all of their clothes off, like when they're in the shower or changing their clothes, takes pictures or video of the child with some or all of their clothes off, watches or takes pictures or videos of the child touching themselves sexually or doing something sexual with another child, teen, or adult, has the child watch pornography or watch the abuser touch themselves sexually, has the child send sexual pictures or videos of themselves to someone else. After watching this video, take a look at the examples provided. You'll notice that people who sexually abuse children can be adults and teens of all ages. In some cases, children are even sexually abused by other children. Most abusers know their victims. They may be family members, relatives, friends, teachers, coaches, babysitters, or others in charge or in a position of authority.
As shown in the previous video, there are many actions that are forms of sexual abuse. Now we are going to listen to a few examples of situations of sexual abuse and what it may look like in real life.
Cindy is a 14-year-old girl who spends a lot of the time playing with the younger children in her neighborhood. No one knows, but she sometimes takes kids back into her garage and gives them candy or soda if they play the dare game. In this game, she dares them to touch her in sexual ways or let her touch them. Some of the kids think it's a little weird, but keep the secret because she gives them lots of attention and goodies. Steve is a new mentor to a 9-year-old boy who lives with his single mom and 3 siblings. Within the first month after being matched in a community-based program, Steve asked if he could take the 9-year-old and his siblings on a camping trip for the weekend to give their mom a break that she seemed to really need. He knew it was against the rules of the mentoring program, but wanted to be helpful. They agreed that just this once they'll break the rules. He shares a tent with the youngest sibling to let the older boys have their own tent. In the middle of the night, he touches the younger boy's penis. The boy is afraid he'll get in trouble if he tells, so he doesn't say anything. Marcia is 17 years old and often babysits for Zach, her 12-year-old neighbor. Usually they sit around and watch TV and play board games. A few months ago, Marcia started showing Zach pictures of half-naked people on her computer. Marcia laughed about it and tried to make it seem like no big deal. Then, Marcia began showing Zach fully naked people, and even some pornographic videos. Zach feels a little uncomfortable, but is excited by the idea that this older girl likes him in this way. He hopes that maybe he'll even get lucky, and something sexual will happen one of these times. Dave is a staff member at an after-school community program. Everyone loves him. He is great working with the younger children on their behavior problems. He's been doing it so long and so well that no one questions him when he doesn't follow the rules that are there to keep children safe. Sometimes he'll give younger girls a ride home if they're walking home alone. He will take children to the bathroom himself, and sometimes he's alone with children in different parts of the building, all against the rules. Dave works so hard and is so good to the kids in many ways that no one suspects that he's been touching children in sexual ways for years. Gloria is a 15-year-old high school freshman. She feels really lucky to be dating Jimmy, who is a popular senior at her school. Lately, Jimmy wants them to do more sexual things than Gloria is comfortable doing. But she also doesn't want to lose her chance to hang out with the popular kids. Last time that they were alone, Jimmy forced his hand down Gloria's pants and wanted to do more. Gloria was saved by a group of friends coming along, but she's afraid of what Jimmy may force her to do the next time they're alone.
Before we look at some different examples, let's talk about the difference between hands-on and hands-off abuse. Hands-on abuse is when there is physical contact between the abuser and the victim. Hands-off abuse is when there is no physical contact between the abuser and the victim. Let's look at some examples. Taking pictures or video of the victim with some or all of their clothes off. This is an example of hands-off abuse. Even though there is no physical contact involved, this is still sexual abuse. The abuser touching or kissing the victim. This is an example of hands-on abuse. There is physical contact between the abuser and the victim. If the abuser has the victim touch them, this is also an example of hands-on abuse. Even if the abuser is not doing the touching, this is still an example of abuse since there is contact between the abuser and the victim. So it is hands-on. Showing the victim sexually explicit pictures or pornography is an example of hands-off abuse. Again, it is still abuse, but there is no physical contact, so it is hands-off abuse. So take a minute. What do you think? What percentage of sexual abuse victims actually know their abuser? Although many people think of sexual abuse in relation to strangers, research shows that about 90% of victims personally knew their abuser. This is sometimes a reason why children are hesitant to tell about their abuse. In this next section, we are going to talk about grooming. Children of all ages may be sexually abused, and the most common way that abusers gain control of their victim is through grooming. So this video will help us understand the grooming process and how to recognize it.
Boys and girls, children of all ages, all racial backgrounds, and from all kinds of neighborhoods may be sexually abused. Children with developmental and physical delays are at greater risk. Sexual abusers target their victims with a process called grooming. Grooming is how abusers control their victims and set them up to be abused. Grooming is used to get close to and gain the trust of a child, get time alone with a child, make it easier to carry out sexually abusive behaviors, gain the trust of adults who are supervising or watching a child, and it is used to keep a child from telling about the abuse once it's happened. Keep in mind that grooming can happen online with someone your child has not met. Their goal is often to get the child to meet in person. It can also happen when someone wants to take advantage of a child and forces them to have sex with people for something of value, including money or drugs. This is called child sex trafficking. Victims may be groomed both online and in person. Let's take a look at what the grooming process might look like. When considering a potential victim, the abuser may pick a child or teen who is different in some way that makes abusing them easier. For example, they may choose a child who doesn't have a father figure in his life and try to take on that role, or they may pick a child who seems to need a friend or is picked on by others. Abusers try to gain the child's trust by learning about their wants and needs. They use this information to give children what they want most. Abusers will also work to gain the parent or guardian's trust. They may pretend to be your friend or may get into a romantic relationship with you to get close to your child. They may also work or volunteer for a trusted community organization. Abusers may try to gain your trust by helping out with chores, running errands, or babysitting. Abusers will also create a special connection with the child. They may work hard to become a person your child can't live without. They may let them do a lot of fun things or things they aren't usually allowed to do. Abusers may use tricks and manipulation to gain control over the child. They may let them drink alcohol or use drugs and then tell the child they're going to tell on them if they don't do what they say. They might take sexual pictures of the child and then threaten to share them with the child's friends or family or online if the child doesn't do what they say. They may also gain control by staying away to show the child what it would be like to live without the abuser. Abusers often find a way to make sexual behavior seem normal. They move from respectful and appropriate touches like a quick hug to more personal contact like rustling and kissing. They may use accidental touches to see what they can get away with or trade money or gifts for allowing sexual touches. They may also use sexual pictures or videos to make this type of touching seem okay. Abusers may then try to get the child alone. They may do this by babysitting, taking children on errands, taking them for overnight trips, taking children to their house, or taking them to another part of the house. Sexual abusers may use bribes like money or toys, threaten to hurt the child or their family, or use actual force to sexually abuse the victim. Abusers may abuse children while helping them change clothes, during baths or showers, or when the child is sleeping. To try to keep the child from telling, abusers may threaten to hurt the child, friends, pets, or family members if they tell. Abusers may say, "I'll go to jail and won't be able to see you if you tell." They might also tell children, "No one will believe you," or "You'll get in trouble if you say anything." Now that you understand how grooming works, let's talk about how to spot it. Look out for people who show red flag behaviors. Red flag behaviors may be a sign that someone may be working toward abusing your child. These behaviors can include taking an unusual or special interest in your child. This may be when someone befriends your family but seems to be unusually focused on spending time with a particular child. Being overly interested in helping you out or volunteering to watch your child. Spending a lot of time alone with your child. Giving your child presents or special privileges such as rides to and from a sports practice or game. Being overly affectionate with your child. Or appearing to be too good to be true or do too much.
As seen in the video, an abuser begins by choosing a victim. They then work to gain the trust of the victim or the family in order to get control. The abuser attempts to normalize the behavior, and eventually they isolate the victim, and then the abuse happens. Finally, the abuser tries to keep the victim quiet about the abuse. Unfortunately, many children and teens who have been abused do not tell anyone of the abuse. In this next section, you will learn why children choose to keep the abuse to themselves.
We don't know the exact number of children suffering from sexual abuse, but many experts agree that few victims actually tell someone about it. So what keeps them from telling?
The dynamics of sexual abuse to really understand what comes into play in children not telling. The process of that an individual who's abusing uses is so subtle, often that a child doesn't know that they've slipped into something that is inappropriate. The child may not have the intellect to understand what's happening, may not have the knowledge of sexuality, may not have had any discussions around sexuality, but also might just not developmentally understand that what is happening is wrong. But they have a sense that something isn't quite right at the same time because they're being asked to keep it secret, which kids get a little bit of a sense about. So inherent in the crime itself are feelings for the child of being part of it and it being some of their responsibility. So there's an inherent shame that comes into play, which is completely misplaced, but we're talking about a child. And that is also fed, oftentimes by the individual that's perpetrating the crimes. So we're talking about a child, we're talking about a crime that's very isolating for a child when they're told they can't talk about it. There's no one to help them problem solve out of it. Other things we hear from survivors are that boys are told that if they do tell someone, someone may think they're gay. And that certainly is maybe in a child's mind or an adult that hasn't disclosed yet. may continue to be in their mind and they may never disclose. It's painful. I think disclosures are painful. To relive the trauma of it is difficult.
So there are many reasons why children don't tell. Some feel like they are to blame, or they may not even know that what happened was abuse. Some might not have the language to describe what happened. Many are asked to keep it a secret, or they may be tricked by their abuser or even threatened by their abuser. And it's a very traumatic event, and so many children do not want to relive the trauma by telling what happened. When children do decide to tell about their abuse, they may only tell small portions of the abuse at a time, and it may come out over a long period of time. They may try to test an adult's reaction to see if they can be trusted with the information by telling about a little bit of the abuse. It is also likely that children might tell parts of the abuse in a confusing order that does not make sense. This can make it difficult for adults to recognize that the child is trying to tell them something. This may even result in the adult thinking that the child is lying, and therefore they stop listening. Children might also try to take back things that they have started to share due to fear of getting in trouble. And although many children don't tell about their sexual abuse, they do show some signs. So in this next section, we will learn what signs to look out for.
Many children don't tell anyone about their sexual abuse, but they do show some signs. It can be hard to tell when children are being sexually abused because the signs of sexual abuse are also the signs of other problems like stress. Here are some general signs you should look for. Children who are being abused may have sudden or big changes in their behavior. They may act afraid, have trouble sleeping, or not want to be left alone. They may start acting younger than their age by doing things like wetting the bed. They may be sad or cry often. They may not want to play as much as they used to. They may have problems with school, and they may start talking about an older friend. Children who are being abused may also be angry, disrespectful, or aggressive towards adults or other children. They may want to be alone with another adult or teen a lot, or they may not want to be left alone with a specific person. They may start lying or keeping secrets about where they've been or what they've been doing. And they may start getting unexplained gifts, money, or special privileges. You should also look for changes in children's sexual talk or behavior that is too mature for their age. Children who have been exposed to adult sexual behavior may start to talk about or ask about sexual things. They may seem very interested in their own bodies or seem very unhappy with their body. They may copy the behavior by acting out sexual play with other children. They may even try to touch adults in sexual ways. Keep in mind that sexual exploration is normal for children. They're curious about all aspects of the world around them. This includes their bodies and sexual behavior. It's also not unusual for children to be curious about other children's bodies and sometimes try to touch each other. Many parents find any type of sexual behavior between children upsetting, even if it's normal. But most children don't understand the sexual part of what they are doing. They're just being curious or doing what feels good. Just like with younger children, sexual behavior is normal for teens. Adolescence is the time when teens are learning about their bodies and sexuality. But sexual behavior with their peers can be a sign of sexual abuse, especially when your child seems too young to be sexually active. Teens who are being sexually abused may also skip school, have problems with their teachers, or start getting bad grades. They may have anxiety or depression, or begin cutting themselves or showing other self-harming behaviors. They may also start having poor hygiene. For example, they may not take care of how they look or smell. They may also start using and abusing alcohol and drugs or run away from home. Keep in mind, not all children show signs of sexual abuse, and if they are showing signs, it may be the result of other issues you may need to help them with, like stress or bullying. It's important to trust your feelings and regularly ask your child about what's going on in their life. Don't ignore any suspicions. You know your child best. If something isn't right about their behavior, Or if what they're saying doesn't quite match what you're seeing or feeling, don't ignore it, because sexual abuse can have devastating effects on children. Children can experience many negative effects of sexual abuse. These negative effects include emotional distress, behavioral issues, and relationship difficulties. Parents may notice some of these changes right away, while others may appear when the child is older. For example, abused children may be sad, worried, have trouble sleeping, have problems at school, and have poor self-esteem. Some may be aggressive toward others and disrespect adults, and some may act out sexually. Children and teens who are sexually abused may have relationship problems with peers, dating difficulties, and mental health issues. For example, victims may not be close to or get along with their family members, end up in abusive relationships, or experience sexual problems or dysfunction. They may also have depression or anxiety disorders. Some children and teens who are sexually abused go on to sexually victimize others, but this is a very small group of victims. It's important to know that some victims experience very few negative effects of their sexual abuse. Abused children recover better when they get the help they need. Counseling can help children and teens make sense of what has happened to them. It can also help them know what to do to feel better. Families also do better when they get the help they need. Counseling can help you and other family members deal with your own reactions and concerns. It can also help you know how to best support the victim. Please know that Big Brothers Big Sisters staff is here for you and your family. If something happens, we can connect you with the right help for everyone in your family.
As seen in the video, children who have been sexually abused may show signs. They may start having sudden behavior changes. They may start acting more afraid or have trouble sleeping. You may notice that they're sad or they cry more often than usual. They may start acting younger than their age, or they might not want to play as much as they used to. They might start having more problems at school, or they might start talking about an older friend who they have or who they're spending time with. They may be angry, disrespectful, or aggressive. They may not want to be left alone. They might start lying or keeping secrets. And they might start getting unexplained gifts or privileges. Teenagers who have been sexually abused may show some of the same signs as children, but they also may show different signs, such as skipping school, having problems with their teachers, starting to get bad grades. You might notice more anxiety or depression. They might start cutting themselves or showing self-harm behaviors. They might start having poor hygiene as well. So when adults learn about abuse, it can be devastating and it can bring up many different emotions and reactions. In this section, you will learn about healthy ways to respond.
When parents do learn about their child's abuse, they can react very differently. Some react with anger, sadness, fear, or denial that the abuse even happened because they trusted the sexual abuser. Some parents may have a combination of these reactions. Finding out about abuse is a shock, and there is no one right way to respond. If you do learn that your child has been sexually abused, stay calm. You may be angry, but do not direct that anger at your child. It's very important that you listen to them. Sometimes children become worried by an adult's reaction, and they may wonder if they did the right thing by telling. They need to know they can talk to you. Be sure to offer support. The most important thing you can do is tell your child it wasn't their fault. Child sexual abuse is never the fault of the victim. Be clear and consistent in telling them that the abuse is never okay, that they did the right thing by coming to you, and that you support them 100%. You should also tell them that it's important you report this right away so that they and other children can stay safe. It helps to know that no matter what, protecting your child has to come first. Don't forget to find support for yourself as well. Think about the kinds of help you might need. You might need practical help like babysitting or legal advice. Or you might need emotional support from someone who will listen to you. Look to people you trust for help: family members, teachers, religious leaders, or Big Brothers Big Sisters staff members. Remember, the more support you have, the more strength you'll have to help your child. Unfortunately, sometimes parents learn that the person abusing their child is a family member. Child sexual abuse is always very difficult for a parent, but there can be additional complications when the abuser is a family member. Parents may feel guilt that they should have known what was happening and stopped it sooner. They may feel shame if others find out. Sometimes other family members will side with the abuser against the child, and this creates family conflicts. There may even be financial issues. For example, if a mother finds out that her child's father is the abuser, she may leave him and need to live on one income. She may also have a lot of new expenses like a new apartment or a lawyer. Sometimes cultural and religious beliefs affect how parents and families react to learning about child sexual abuse. Many of us have strong beliefs, values, and behaviors that have been passed down in our families. These can either help us protect children or they can get in the way. Cultural and religious beliefs that help us protect children include the belief that children need to be protected by adults, that children are our future and are highly valued, and that we should do all we can to keep children from harm. Cultural and religious beliefs that can get in the way of protecting children include the belief that abuse brings shame to the family, that important family or community members are never wrong, that children are the property of adults, and that adults have a right to do what they want with a child. Protecting children is an important responsibility. When you belong to a family or community with strong cultural or religious traditions that may get in the way of protecting children, remind yourself that our laws say we must protect children. You can think of how many good people are ready to help us keep children safe, and you can reach out to someone you trust who can help you protect your child or help you report to the right person.
Now that we have a better understanding of what child sexual abuse is and how it affects children and families, we are going to learn ways to lower the risk to your child or other children you know. At Big Brothers Big Sisters, we believe that child sexual abuse is a preventable risk. This next video will talk about different strategies parents and adults can use to lower the risk of abuse occurring.
Now that you have a good understanding of what child sexual abuse is and how it affects children and families, let's talk about some ways you can lower the risk to your child. Start by teaching your child to create healthy personal boundaries. Tell them, you have a right to safe and healthy personal boundaries. Your body belongs to you, and others should not touch you in a way that hurts you. No one should make you feel bad or scared by saying mean things or by saying they will hurt you. No one should touch you in a sexual way on the parts of your body covered by a bathing suit. This means no one should touch you on your penis, vagina, bottom, or breasts, and no one should ask you to touch them in a sexual way. Be sure to use the correct names for body parts. This helps children feel more comfortable talking about their bodies and sex with you. You should also emphasize that these boundary rules go for family members, friends, neighbors, teachers, religious leaders, coaches, everyone. And remember to tell children it's not their fault if someone violates their personal boundaries. They should tell you or another trusted adult right away and keep telling until someone makes it stop. If possible, start teaching these rules to your children when they're young. But whatever your child's age, it's never too late to start teaching these rules to them. Talk to them about boundaries at least once a month so they know you're serious about protecting them. Remind them that we all need help at times in our lives, and it's important to know how to ask for help. Practice how they would ask an adult for help if someone was touching or hurting them. Let them know that you and other adults will always be there to help them. Talk with them about some other adults they could get help from if you weren't available. You can also try playing the what if game to get them thinking about how they would deal with different kinds of boundary violations. For example, if you're heading to the playground, ask them what they would do if another child touched them in a way they didn't like. You should encourage them to make a strong statement about what they want by saying things like, "I don't like that," or "Don't touch me like that." Let them know that sometimes they may need to say what they want a few times before someone will respect their boundary. Help children change their boundary rules as they get older and start dealing with different kinds of issues. For example, when teens start dating, you should talk to them about what a healthy relationship is, what kind of touching is appropriate, and what isn't. It may be uncomfortable, but it's important that you talk about sex with your child, especially teens. Unfortunately, many children and teens only hear about sex from adults who tell them what not to do, such as don't have sex or don't get into trouble. While it's not always easy to talk about, children and teens do best when they can talk with a parent about healthy relationships and healthy sexuality. It's okay for you to admit to your child that this is uncomfortable for you to talk about. Just be clear that it's really important information they need to keep themselves safe. Remember, it's difficult to see signs of abuse in some children and teens. That's why it's so important to regularly ask your children whether anyone is touching them in ways that are inappropriate, uncomfortable, or that they don't like. Keep reminding them that they can tell you anything, that you will believe them, and that no one has the right to touch them in ways they don't want. If it happens, it is never their fault. You'll also want to practice good communication with your child. It sounds simple, but just having regular conversations with your child about everyday things really can help them to be better communicators. To practice good communication, pick the right place. You want to be somewhere you can both focus on talking. That means turning all electronics off. Make the conversation fit your child's age. Start with short talks for younger children, maybe 1 to 2 minutes, and work up to longer talks, like 3 to 5 minutes, for teens. Start by talking about something interesting to your child. Help them practice by taking turns talking and sticking to the topic. Be a model for good communication. Be sure to praise them for talking with you. These conversations will not only help them feel closer to you, but may encourage them to seek help when they need it because they know you're willing to listen. These are some important messages you should share with your children often. Use words that fit their age and tell them, "You can tell me anything, anytime, and I'll help you out of any kind of problem." It's never okay for other kids or adults to touch you in a way you don't like, or to touch your private parts. If that ever happens to you, it's not your fault, and you should tell me right away so I can help make it stop. If something bad is ever happening to someone in the family or to someone you know, it's important that you tell me so we can help them. If someone is bothering you, or if someone is doing something to you that you don't like and I'm not around, tell another adult. If you tell an adult that someone is doing something to you that you don't like and they don't help you, find another adult to tell and keep telling until someone helps you. There are also some messages you should not share. Do your best not to say, "Listen to adults and do whatever they tell you to do." If I'm not around, think of your big coach or teacher just like another parent and listen to what they say to do. With all the stories you tell, I can't believe anything you say. If you have a problem with something, step up and take care of it yourself. These kinds of messages are harmful and may make children think they can't talk to you and that it's okay for adults to hurt them. There are many resources available to you about communication and personal safety for children and teens. You can start with Big Brothers Big Sisters safety booklets for younger children and teens located in the additional resources section of this training. For more information on this topic or any of those covered in this training series, contact your local agency or email ycps@bbbsa.org.
Now we are going to look at some different examples and practice different things, whether or not we should share with our children or should not share. So I want you to read it with me, and then feel free to pause the video and take a couple seconds to think about whether or not it's something you should share with your child or teen or should not. Saying, "If I'm not around and you need help, tell another adult." Is this something you should or should not share? This is something you should share. telling them it's never okay for kids or adults to touch you in a way you don't like. Should you share this or should you not share this? You should share this. Saying if you have a problem with something, step up and take care of it yourself. Is this something you should share or should not share? You should not share this. Saying you can tell me anything, anytime, and I'll help you out of any kind of problem. Is this something you should share or should not share? This is something you should share. Saying, if you tell an adult you need help and they don't help you, keep telling. Is this something you should share or should not share? This is something you should share. Saying, listen to adults and do whatever they tell you to do. Is this something you should share or should not share? This is something you should not share. Saying, if I'm not around, think of other adults just like a parent and do what they say. Is this something you should share or should not share? This is something you should not share. Some people find it surprising that we are telling you not to tell your child to listen to other adults as if they were their parent, because we are often taught to respect elders, listen to adults equally, and not talk back. This messaging can become confusing for children and youth who then feel as though they cannot set their own personal boundaries with other adults. A more helpful message might be, you are expected to follow the rules when you are with your big, but if you ever feel uncomfortable, let them know. If you don't feel better, find a way to call me or tell another adult. It is important for children and teens to understand that there may be times when it is okay to tell an adult no. It might be necessary to address this multiple times when using different scenarios to help children understand. Big Brothers Big Sisters works with parents and guardians to reduce the risk of children being abused. You are our partner in helping keep children and teens safe. Suspected abuse should always be reported to the authorities. Even if you are not sure, the situation should be reported so the authorities can investigate. Some of our local policies include no overnight visits and not having home visits for the first 3 months. We also screen our volunteers. We do background checks and fingerprinting, and we also do extensive interviews, and we do home visits for those volunteers who are going to be doing volunteering in community-based. We also offer support throughout the duration of the match. This means that once your child or teenager is matched with a big brother or big sister, they will be matched with someone who is called a match support specialist, and they are professional trained staff at Big Brothers Big Sisters who will help support, call and check in, and make sure everything is going well in the match, but ultimately to make sure our children and teens are safe. And as mentioned before, you should always report suspected abuse. Everyone in the state of Tennessee is a mandated reporter. And so everyone here at Big Brothers Big Sisters and everyone in the community must report suspected abuse or neglect. And then we also offer training for our parents and also training for our volunteers. Our volunteers are required to go through a safety training before they are able to be matched with a child or youth. These are some of the systems we have in place as part of our youth protection system. And like I mentioned, we do not allow overnight visits, and there are no home visits allowed for the first 3 months of the match. So that way everyone has time to get to know each other and make sure everyone feels comfortable. And this is for our community-based program. We also offer additional resources. We've covered a lot of information today, and you will learn more about policies and procedures throughout the enrollment process and while the child or teenager is participating in the Big Brothers Big Sisters programs. So your child or teen will receive a child safety training booklet, during the interview. And you can also scan the QR code shown on the screen for additional resources, or you can reach out to Big Brothers Big Sisters for more information. We encourage you to reach out to Big Brothers Big Sisters with anything that comes up regarding you or your family. Thank you so much for taking the time to complete this training. We are so excited to partner with you as you move forward in the process. Please reach out to Big Brothers Big Sisters with any questions or concerns.